I want you for the remainder of this call, get out of the chasing mode. Perhaps there's something that you want to get out of this talk. Become aware of that. Acknowledge, perhaps, if the mind is trying to make this moment a means to an end, means to some better future, which will be better, more happier and pleasant. Become aware of that. See that the mind is always immersed in experience, in the world. Everything it says, everything it's projecting is about your personal experience. It's lost in the world. So here, just for the remainder of this call, you're being asked to no longer be so concerned with what happens, right? The happenings, but rather be interested in the mind itself. So the mind, which is always just immersed in the world, and this is just our experience. From here we live, from the mind we live. You're now being asked to bring a whole another realm under your conscious observation, rather than just constantly interpreting, judging, resisting, clinging, projecting, describing what you see, hear, touch, taste, feel. You're being asked to be less interested in that just for the time being and consider the mind that is describing and interpreting and judging and projecting. Bring that under your conscious observation. So here and now, perhaps even close your eyes and recognize that truly everything that you call the world, just by the simple act of closing your eyes, is no longer there. Here and now, be really, really fresh. Don't resort to anticipation of what will be there once you open your eyes again, and don't refer to memory as what was there when the eyes were open. Just be really fresh. The moment you close your eyes, at least visually, what you perceive as the world is no more. Now what you are aware of is much more subtle. With the eyes open, all you see is just what we call material physical objects. And in these objects, we just remain immersed. But the moment you close your eyes, what you consider physical, material, is no more, just by this simple little thing. Now what you know, now what you are aware of, are the subtle, perhaps, sensations, the thoughts, which are quite literally invisible. There's no physical tangibility in thoughts, yet you know them. Any emotion that may be present, any sound, any sense. So just acknowledge that when you close your eyes, seeing, right, eyesight, we can say eyesight stops, but the seeing, some sort of seeing, continues to occur. Perceiving, there's a knowing. But what you know with the eyes closed is much more subtle. There's a quote by Nisargadatta Maharaj. He says, the child watches the toy, but the mother watches the child, not the toy. In the same way, right now, right, the mind just immersed in the world, watches the world, cares for the world only. But you, here and now, be more interested in the mind rather than the world that it's always playing with. Anything that you observe right now, perhaps it's an uncomfortable sensation, or perhaps it's some interpretations on what is being said, what you're being asked to do, where perhaps will lead you, if you can do it or if you're having a hard time. All these things, simply become aware of them, meaning acknowledge them and let them be. Don't create further interpretation on your interpretation or judgment. You're not trying to get rid of them. You're not trying to change them into something. You're not trying to get rid of the unpleasant sensations and thoughts and feelings and try to replace them with positive thoughts and feelings. You're not trying to run away from anything, resist anything, even the most unpleasant that perhaps in this moment. Don't think about what was there 10 minutes ago or what may be there later. Just here and now, whatever is arising in view, acknowledge it. Just look at it and let it be. Only in this way are you no longer at conflict with what you perceive. The mind is always clinging and resisting. Leave that to the mind. Let the mind cling and resist. You be the looker of the clinging and resisting, arising and subsiding. And you have this capacity. Don't say, but Sunny, it's hard and this and this. That's fine. You know, I'm asking you right now to try in a fresh way. And I'm perhaps for those who have never even recognized this, I'm opening the mind up to this possibility that this is doable, that you have this capacity to observe even the unpleasant and not react to it and not pass further judgment or resistance. And when you're able to acknowledge the pleasant and the unpleasant, subtle or material, when you're able to acknowledge and let be, this is what we call acceptance. Not being in conflict with what you perceive. Just become aware of, again, the mind just continuing to pump out these interpretations of what is being said or how it has been for you in the past when you did this, or maybe you've heard this before, and you're good at it, or like all these interpretations, just pumping them out. Do nothing about them. You're not trying to get rid of them either. You're just seeing this. You're acknowledging that you are in a position where you're able to see this yet not react to it, see this yet not be immersed in it, get lost in it, see it and not be hurt by it, not need it to mean something, not looking for why it's arising. If the whys and all the other stuff arises, right, you're looking at even that. You're by observing in this way, you're placing yourself prior to anything that arises, rather than looking from the interpretation rather than being at the level of the interpretation or judgment and projecting from there. You're placing yourself a step outside, or we can say more accurately, you're recognizing that from where I see in this very moment and always is already prior to what I see coming and going, regardless of if it is pleasant or unpleasant. Any nervousness, any anxiousness, perhaps, any fear, any resistance, all that it is just, a bundle of emotion and some thoughts. Usually these terrorize us. They make us act in all sorts of ways. It's because we start to see from the anger, the anxiousness, the fear. You're being asked to acknowledge that you are already a step outside of anger, fear, anxiousness, or anything else. That you can look at the anger or the fear, and you can look at even the response that arises, perhaps sometimes, when you're observing. Let's say you're observing your fear as a sensation or some sort of thought, and then a reaction arises to that. That you're able to observe even the reaction, that you are not the reaction, and you need not buy into it or believe in it or give significance to it. And by seeing this clearly, you're acknowledging your true position and you're relinquishing any conflict. Conflict arises when we cling or resist. But just being the seeing of what arises and allowing it to be just for this moment as it is, you become more into alignment with your true essential nature, which is the total allowance of what is perceived, what is arising. Almost like the screen on which any image is being portrayed. It doesn't matter if you're portraying a lovely romantic movie on there and a nice scene, or if it's like a war scene. It's not hurting the screen, and the screen is not rejecting either one or preferring either one. So without you even trying to do this purposely, this is already happening underneath the surface of your perception just by the very act of observing. You're coming into total acceptance, total allowance of what is, not what will be or what was, just what is. And now as you are observing here, whatever it may be, right? It may be the faintest of sensation or a thought, or it may be something really, really unpleasant and fearful and scary. Whatever you are just observing and allowing to be. Now comes the genuine curiosity, right? As you do this practice. As what am I observing? It's very evident, very clear to me that I am aware of even the subtlest sensations, the subtlest thoughts, As what am I observing? As what am I aware of them? And here a thought may arise and it may say, oh, I think it's awareness, uh, or it's just, it's like, I don't understand this, or whatever it may be saying. Recognize that whatever the thought is saying, even if it's the correct answer, it still cannot help you. Because, see, this thought, which is arising, claiming to answer the question, you're claiming to answer your curiosity, is simply another thought which there's an awareness of. So perhaps it can tell you the answer conceptually, but it will keep your attention on the thought itself. It will keep you away from going towards what is, it will keep you away from looking for the answer. So here right now you're not interested in that, or you're being given the license to not be so interested in whatever the thought is saying or projecting, even if it's what the mind claims to be the right answer. The simple fact is, even this subtle little thought that arose as my voice, even this is observed by me. There's a space almost between me and what is seen. As what do I see even this thought? That which is aware, the only thing I can try to, label or see where or what it is just this sense of me, the sense of I, because it is very, very clear that it is I that is aware. This seems to be the center of observing, from where I know, from where I am aware of even the subtlest things. So let's start here. Watching this I-ness, me-ness. Notice how it's not another sensation or a feeling, not really something we can label or create a form or shape around. Can't really find it anywhere. It's just here. But it doesn't have any sort of quality that we can write down. It's just this I-ness, this me-ness. So let's watch this for a second, for this moment. A thought may arise, especially if you're new to this, and it may say, oh, I don't know what is happening. I don't understand this I-ness. Even this is a thought which who sees? You say, I see it. It's very clear to you that I am the knower of this thought. So that is exactly what we are referring to, this I-ness. Mind doesn't do well here, like it continues to arise and create all sorts of trouble. Watch that. Let it be. Don't be so reactive to the mind, and see that if any reaction does arise, it is also just observable. So you need not take ownership of the reaction either. I am reacting. I am fearful. I am anxious. I am confused. See that all these subtle energies, like such as confusion, even, is perceived, is observed. By what? Me. Be more interested in that which is observing, in the observing itself, rather than what is observed. What is observed, the content, will just keep you focused in content. It will not help. So again, when these sorts of thoughts arise, worry not. Let them arise. When the mind resists and does all of that it can to, come and to regain that hold over your attention, don't give it that. The reason you keep going to mind is because you're interested in what it is saying. You're interested in the interpretations and the projections of mind. But for now, you've been given the full license to just no longer care about that. You can pick up and resume caring about it, as soon as this call is over. And I promise it'll still be there with all of its projections. It's not like it will run out. So watch it, let it be, want nothing to do with it or about it, and just acknowledge one simple fact that this is also seen by what? And now go looking for this answer with your attention. See that whenever there's a moment of just silence, mind is creating all sorts of rejections to it. Perhaps it finds it boring, perhaps it finds it not worthwhile, pointless. Watch the mind squeal in this way. Watch what it will not, what will it not do to get your attention back? Just have the firm resolve just for here and now. You don't have to maintain this. You don't have to go by your day. Just right here and right now. Have the firm resolve that, right now, whatever it says, whatever it does not matter. I am not interested. I'm willing to try something new. The fact remains, whatever it is saying, there's an awareness of it. Something here is alive. Something here is aware. Something knows my subtle experience. Bring your attention to that. When you're asked to bring your attention to that, even attention does not know what to do, does not know where to go. Because attention always needs an object to go towards, something to go towards. It cannot go towards where it's coming from. So it's just like, for that moment, it just doesn't know what to do. And perhaps mind comes back right then and there. But just be a little persistent. Don't be afraid of the lack of objective focus. Don't keep running away from this. Years of theoretical practice and concepts don't even amount like anything in front of this. And so you'll see that inquiry is a means to just this, is a means to silence, to being quiet in this way, into the lack of objective focus. And this is the invitation here before you to be a little interested in this, at least a little bit, more than you are in the mind and its toy, which is the world. We remain restlessly chasing, right, in our pursuits of the world and this and that. And so this deeper experience is completely blocked away. It doesn't even feel possible or something that we even know, recognize. But the moment we pause that just for this here and now, and we look in this way, now what the mind is seeking may actually be understood. The question that the mind has may actually be understood because we are resting our little personal mental intelligence, which we believe to be the most intelligent, and we're submitting ourselves to real intelligence, which I always say, these the same intelligence that is keeping your heart beating, that keeps the earth moving. So it's almost like you're giving up your concerns, your questions, your doubts, your fears, and you're resting all of that. You're resting the state of pride, and you're just sort of handing yourself over to the unknown. This is why the mind is scared. But it is in the unknown in which discovery is possible, in which anything new can, there can actually be a seeing. So inquiry is a means to this. Don't mistake inquiry to be anything else. See, perhaps, as we're doing this sort of guidance, some questions that maybe you came onto the call with perhaps don't even matter anymore or not even worth asking anymore. Many of your own questions and doubts that just keep you running everywhere, you start to notice that, you know, you have the capacity to turn away from many of those questions. Some, they're also sometimes relevant to ask and they help. Those are the questions I talk about, like the practice itself. Whereas some questions just keep you churning in your mind again and again and again and only lead to more questions. And so you learning the capacity to allow yourself to see even this question, this confusion, and let it be, and no longer buy into the question itself. It relieves you of being the confused one for whom this doesn't make sense. And you finally become free of the need to ask and answer mental questions. So that's what the inquiry is a means for. And this, do not keep running away. I know, like a lot of everybody that I speak to continues to, in some way, run away from this. We must yield to the simplicity of this teaching. Very good. So we'll get into the Q&A portion of today's call. If you do want to ask a question out loud, you could use the raise hand feature next to your name. You can type your question in the chat. I will get to those questions after because I do have some pre-submitted questions as well that I'm going to get to first, just to make things easier, flowing. Before we do get into the Q&A, especially because it gets sort of wordy, just go into it not needing to understand anything, not trying to grasp anything, not trying to force any understanding, just just listening for the sake of listening, being here for the sake of being here. So the first question is, hello Sunny, I follow you every day as I am present, no thoughts, nothing going on while meditating or going through the day. There is strong sensation appearing in the body and around it. Feels like electricity, or I can't describe it. It's not pain, but it's really uncomfortable. I stay with it and not just following the mind's idea or labeling it. Is it the mind that's creating this? I inquire to find if I have a belief causing this. Before I describe myself, before I used to describe myself as a highly sensitive person, but now I stop telling this story and just witness. Still, it makes me crazy not to know what it is. Maybe you can help with this. One thing I would say is that there is definitely no need to question within, what belief do I maybe have from past experience, or what that may be causing this. If you go in looking for questions like this or answers like this, the mind will cook something up and then you will believe it. So notice that inquiry is not about that. It is not to ask these questions. Inquiry is what we just did. It is this simple acknowledgement first that here and now, whatever my experience may be, pleasant, unpleasant, pleasant sensations, unpleasant sensations, whatever circumstance, whatever thoughts, something here is aware. Something knows my experience. What knows it? Right? As what am I aware? Because we move around in the world as if this person, which is just a bundle of sensations, thoughts, emotions, beliefs, perceptions, whatever it is, just this bundle. We walk around like I am this bundle of objects, which is doing the awareness, which is aware. And so in inquiry, we're no longer assuming this. We're not rejecting the bundle of sensations. We're not negating it, but we're just no longer just assuming this to be myself, because we're recognizing that this bundle of sensations, thoughts, perceptions is seen by me. These are constantly changing. This bundle, when it was 10 years old, was very, very different. Everything was different about it. But there's some sense of continuity, some sense of I me, you know, the bundle changed, but this sense of me, the sense of myself has not changed. I experienced this current bundle of thoughts, feelings, sensations, emotions, whatever. And when I was 10 years old, right, that bundle of thoughts, emotions, sensations, totally different. Yet I experienced them through the same sense of me. And this thought arises and it subsides. When it subsides, it does not feel like it's taking a piece of me with it. This emotion, no matter how unpleasant, it arises, it does its thing, and then it goes. But it's not taking a piece of me with it. I do not feel like I am some part of me is missing when they are no longer present. So I'm like on that train platform where I'm just standing on the platform and I see these trains coming and going. And only because I'm on that train platform can I see these things coming and going. Can I register change? Can I recognize that I am not on the train itself? So this sense of I, me, that there's some sense of continuity to it, in front of which all your thoughts, your beliefs, your personalities, so many personalities in just one lifetime. Your body, how changeful. Even your most bought into beliefs, perhaps about politics, religion, everything, also changing. So from where do you register this changefulness? From what changeless position do you register all this changingness? That is inquiry. It is not, we're not inquiring as to what type of train it is, about standing on that platform. We don't care about what type of train it is, when it was made, from where it comes, where is it going. We are more interested in what is it that is seeing the trains come and go. And so, uh, just wanted to first and foremost fix the inquiry in the way that you're doing it. Don't go rooting for where does belief come out of, because trust me, the mind will create something. And then it will launch another journey that, okay, it came from this past experience that was really difficult for me. And now I have to go through a whole healing journey to be free of this. Don't fall for that. In regards to your question about the sensation, it does not matter what the sensation is. You don't have to necessarily label it pain or, it's fine. It's fine if you can't label it, if you don't know what it is. Just see that even this subtle sensation is something that is observable. It is observed by you. When you, and again, right, you always got to recheck, readjust your position. See, as what do I observe this sensation? If you take if in that moment you're assuming that from where I am seeing is just this body, you have identified as an object within the seeing, right, which is the body. And now, if you, when the moment you have identified as an object, you will have some sort of conflict with other objects. And this we suffer. This limited contraction, this limited idea of ourselves, this is what we suffer. And from here we take the pain and the sensation to be what I am. Because the moment you have identified, that's so this is why it's important to readjust your position again and again in this way. And then just look, let it be. If you're truly in total allowance of this sensation, then you're not worried about how long this will be here, when it will go away, what it will turn into. You see? So perhaps as you're looking and you're just observing the sensation, and then all these rejections to it are arising, see them, don't buy into them. And you have this capacity. Please acknowledge. this subtle little thought that may arise that like, oh, how long do I have to, you know, again, acknowledge even this is seen. I am not this. The moment you recognize this is not me, it's just sort of spontaneously arising, then you will no longer feel a sense of ownership over it that like this is the case. Because, you know, like some sort of uncomfortable response may arise and you're like, no, but Sunny, this is that way. Like I can't not, you know, like this is so real. But it's because there's a sense of ownership over it. There's a sense of me and mine. And as long as there's a sense of me and mine, then we will always sort of experience whatever that projection, that limited experience is. Observing frees you of it. Never for even one moment undervalue this little simple practice. The mind will say, "Oh yeah, it's too simple. Well, give me something more. Give me a you know a 4-step process of this, this, and this." Realize it's this simple. Even the 4-step process may just hint you towards this one simple little thing. And so yield to the simplicity. Next question by Jashu. Uh, is it important to do meditation every day for ideal living? Our definitions of ideal living may be very different. I don't think ideal living is the conventional idea of it, which is just always everything must be pleasant. And for this pleasantness, I will do everything. And it is in this pleasantness where my happiness resides. If you go forward with this attitude, then you will be disappointed. And your happiness will always rest out on the other side of these pleasant events, which will also go. You know, so you will always be sort of circumstance dependent. I would give it a new definition. Ideal living, a state in which you are not in conflict with what is, not what was, not what will be, but here and now. Are you in conflict with any content of awareness? Are you resisting anything here and now? Running away, trying to reject? Or the other side too, which is, are you clinging to something, to some circumstance, person, job, title, belief system, thought, idea, concept? The moment you cling or resist to anything, there's bound to be some sort of suffering, taking you out of ideal living. So I would say, but in order to be in allowance of what is here and now, there must be some alertness here and now. If you are just immersed in experience, you will identify as the bundle of what we call the person, right? The bundle of thoughts, emotions, beliefs, conditioning. And from here, forget about it. Life will just always be a chase for the pleasant and a running away and resisting the unpleasant. So, in order to recognize this and in order to no longer be immersed, that is what meditation is for. It is to pause the constant restlessness of the person and the world, not rejecting it, not negating it, just putting it to the side and becoming empty. And thereby recognizing that all the stuff, the expectation, the constant attachment, the resistance, the belief systems, the ideas about what I am, what the world is. All this stuff is added on to your very essential beingness, just being here, being aware. You know, in a meditation or the sort of guidance that we did earlier, we when we set all of this stuff aside, all that remains is what? Do you disappear? You know, you set your past aside, your future expectations aside, your ideas aside. Do you disappear? And if you don't disappear, then what does remain? Just the sense I am alive. I am aware. You know, this knowing, being aware. So all the stuff is just added on. And it surely doesn't feel like that, right? When you're immersed, it feels like this is me and mine. And this is the extent to which what life is for me, you know, what my ultimate reality is. And then from here, I project that something outside of me is out there governing this whole thing. And then you go into some external chases for a greater power. You completely neglect looking within. That is what meditation is there for. So you don't meditate for just the sake of like, oh, I need to do this, this, and that. Meditate because you're genuinely curious, right? Inquire because you're genuinely curious. What is the nature of myself? Am I really just this limited body or this limited bundle of thoughts? You know, that when that genuine curiosity sits in, then you won't have to be told to here meditate or do self-inquiry. Then there's going to be just that genuine curiosity, that dedication that you have to this uh, curiosity within you will make you will unfold the rest. So in the beginning, let the mind resist and everything like that. You know, you may have to use some sort of discipline to get it, but over time, perhaps with the discipline, interest, curiosity will grow, and then afterwards, it won't be needed, the discipline. Then rather than constantly just chasing and being immersed in the world, your own energies are going to shift towards this inwardness. Freddie asked, how do you let go of the conscious mind and body? Seems like it always wants to be in control. You recognize that there is nothing to let go of. You know, you just have to learn to observe the mind and body and no longer react to it, no longer believe in every little thing that's arising as me or mine. When this tendency goes through the daily practice, the meditation, the inquiry, then you'll see that there's nothing to let go of. We're not trying to reject these. It is just experience itself. If you're trying to practice this because you want to be at peace, but then you're rejecting the body and mind themselves, then how can you be at peace? And is that which seeks to reject, is that not just another mental idea? So the whole point of the practice is to just come to the bare seeing. Why? Because the seeing is essential. It is not being added on. The thought, yeah, thought is being added on here and now. But you get rid of the thought, you get rid of the this and that. What remains is just the seeing, the knowing. And so we are learning to return into, perhaps you can say, alignment with your essential nature, which is the very awareness itself. And from here, mind and body are not problems. Only in identification with the body and mind are the body and mind problems. See, and this is a very valid part of this process, seeing the dysfunction of the person. The person always contradicting itself, always fighting against its own self. It wants happiness, but then it hurts others. It wants peace, but then it launches a war against other things or other people. So the personal state is very dysfunctional in this way, and it constantly creates chaos, not just for others, but for one's own self. So watch the person. The watching is very essential to you. You're not making the watching happen, and you're not doing anything to stop the watching. The watching is happening. It is in the watching that even the dysfunction of the person is being seen. So you're returning to that which is essential, from where the person is no longer a problem. And in the mere watching of it, you'll see that many of the dysfunctional tendencies of the person will come under your conscious observation. And the moment it becomes conscious, the dysfunctional tendencies will cease. We only suffer what we are unconscious to. The moment it becomes conscious, do you think you'll suffer with choice? So it is in the very observing of these unconscious tendencies, they just cease to be. I have a question from the pre-submitted ones. It says, I've heard you explain that thoughts just arise on their own, and we are the witness. How are those types of thoughts different from the thoughts we perceive ourselves to be deliberately thinking? For example, I'm deliberately thinking to try and solve a math problem versus the thoughts that flow in and out of my consciousness without effort or thinking. Are the deliberate ones still just arising on their own, or am I somehow creating them? Yeah. As you become subtler in your seeing, and what I mean by that is as you become subtler in your capacity to see the layers of mind which are subtler than just the thoughts themselves, experiment with this. See this. The thoughts which are just happening, right? It's very clear that, oh, I did not choose these thoughts and they just arose. So here you're able to really accept this pointer and see this to be the case. But now the thoughts that you say you're choosing to think, acknowledge that the urge or the desire to think this one particular thing out of the infinite, look, the whole plethora of things you could have thought of, where is this urge something you're creating or coming up with? Or the situation in which this particular thought needed to be chosen, is that something you're like doing deliberately? So in a way, it is all connected. And so take it as a working hypothesis right now. Don't necessarily accept it or reject it. Just become curious about it in this way and see how all content, from the very concrete situations to the subtlest thoughts arising, it's all sort of meshed together, connected in some way. And all of it is happening spontaneous, each affecting the other. So there is no like one cause for anything. Everything is the cause of everything else. And it's like a web that your mind cannot even comprehend. So see that even the me waking up this day and just having the desire or urge to perhaps do this in this way, is this something that I'm deliberately choosing? And when I go this path, and the person that I happen to meet, or the idea that comes, like, is this something that I'm deliberately, So this will really humble you in a way, because mind is very prideful of all that it thinks and creates and does, and it takes ownership of all this. By seeing this very thing, the spontaneity of the unfoldment of all content, it really humbles the mind itself, because it starts to be clear to you that what I claim to be me and mine, is just a happening. It is just a spontaneous happening. Perhaps in the beginning, this may bring the fear, but you will see if you sort of stick with the looking and don't react to the fear and just let it be, that there's a great freedom in this. Now, can you finally let go of taking so much responsibility for your future? Which is why you're always anxious or always restless. You start to see that there's a deeper intelligence, which is a intelligence greater than my own little mental intelligence, taking care of it. It's also that same intelligence, that same power that perhaps brought the teaching into your life, and it's taking you deeper. So even you going deeper into this teaching is it even your doing? So don't necessarily create any conclusions about this. I always ask you to just be fully open, not needing to fully know, and then use everything you hear as a working hypothesis and become alert in your own experience. See if it is the case. Tan asked, how can I live in presence or being aware every day, doing normal things like work, example, teaching kids at school, doing one thing at a time, not needing to be present during your day, but just being present here and now. Keep it this simple. There's a quote. It says, Zen is not some sort of excitement or blissful this and that. Zen is as simple as doing one thing at a time with your full attention. So just be present here. Don't worry about being present later. Tend to the needs of this moment. If you're teaching children, then make this lesson the greatest lesson just by your care and attention, not necessarily based on what you're teaching and how you're delivering, but just your delivery can suck, your lesson can suck, but you just do it with your utmost care and attention. And that is the love that penetrates deeper than any set of words. Here and now, I'm not teaching this lesson so that I can teach the next lesson tomorrow and so that I could one day be the best teacher in the world. Just teach that one lesson for the sake of teaching that one lesson. Don't even teach it to be of benefit to someone else. And this is something where your mind is like, oh, wait, what? Because you've been taught, just, do everything to help others. Don't worry about helping others. That is being taken care of its own. If your teaching is helping others, it will be of even greater help if you actually let go of your idea of what will help others. When you let go of helping yourself, helping others, and you just do the current activity, provide for the needs of this moment for the sake of just doing the current activity, for the sake of providing for the needs of this moment. See that this is true selfless doing. You're not doing it for yourself, but right, it's not the fake kind of selfless doing where it's like I'm negating my own self, and because I'm selfless, I'm only doing it for the world. This is just another form of delusion. True selfless, right? The path of karma yoga. True selfless action is about not letting go of yourself and then only believing in other selves, but actually no self. Activity happening for the sake of activity. Be the seeing of it. So this is what being present, giving your full attention to what is here and now allows you to do. It allows you to get you out of your own way. It allows you to take your own ideas through which you're constantly filtering the contents of this moment. It helps you just dissolve those filters. Glad that helped. And Roman, I am getting to, I'm going to try to get to almost all of those questions. Okay. So let me see. The next question I have pre submitted. It says, I'm not sure if the webinar is the correct forum to ask the question, but I'm interested in your 1 year program, but I'm not sure what level of awareness of people who can join it. I have been working on my spiritual development since 2013, attended Vipassana courses twice. However, I recently realized that although I have no problem meditating, it does not make me more aware and present in my day to day life. I tend to spend my day on autopilot. Perhaps this is caused by my trauma in childhood where I want to block out the elements of the present that are not pleasant to me. Would your program be beneficial in terms of increasing my awareness and ability of being more present? Has someone who had traumatic childhood participated in it, and how was their experience? Firstly, I will ask you to never, compare to others and think of it as levels of awareness. I always say if the teaching is making its way into your life, there's a certain readiness for it. If there was no readiness, then you would not even encounter a teaching like this. Trust that. So with that, I will say if there's a genuine interest in this, if there's a sort of desire for deepening this understanding, then take a leap of faith. That's exactly what we'll help you do. In regards to meditating, it's not something, right? We're not making a goal in and of itself of meditating this many times per day or this much time per day, right? So perhaps right now for you, the genuine curiosity in what is the nature of myself, what is it that is aware, is perhaps missing. And that is what we ignite with calls like this, which we also, do twice per week. And so see if it feels good to you, and don't let all these sorts of ideas and beliefs, make you contemplate in this sort of way where you then go looking in your childhood traumatic experiences, then you dig up the past and bring it further in, and then create more judgments off of it. See the dysfunction of this. And this just goes for everybody that perhaps you're having any difficulty with anything here and now. Do not go thinking okay, this in my past is doing this and this and this, and that's why I'm behaving like this, and then creating a problem out of your past and your action here and now. You will see this will work against you. This will make the mind more restless, and this will keep you in the trap of the past. Whereas in truth, the more here you are, the more present you are, the more you are letting the past be and moving forward here and now. Now, whatever is relevant from the past, right? It will arise automatically without you asking for it. It will arise as the form of thoughts or sensations or some sort of behavior patterns. And as you are in the observing of the now and of the contents of the now, you will become free of it. So there's even a quote, right, I think, in The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. He says, you must deal with the past in the now. Do not think that, like, oh, here, let me go back to the past through all these memories and thinking, um, and then let me deal with it that way. No, deal with the past here and now, if it arises in whichever way it does. Observe and transcend. Observe and let be. Same thing. And so, in regards to your program inquiry, um, we there's people of all levels of understanding. So that does not matter. If there's a genuine interest in this and it's something you need help with, then take a look at it. And to see other people's experience in it, you can go on the website and to the reviews section, and there's plenty of people that will share their experience. Paresh says, I fall asleep during meditation. I would say this can just be solved with very, very practical things like getting enough rest, making sure your diet is clean and you're getting in, enough movement and activity. If you're not getting enough sleep, then, and if you're just exhausting yourself in the day-to-day stuff, then when you sit down for 5 minutes and close your eyes, you're going to fall asleep. So you have to make time for that. You have to tend to keeping your body and mind in a certain pleasant way, which aids the inquiry, which aids the meditation. If you just fall asleep the moment you close your eyes, that means you're very exhausted then. And I'm sure there's plenty of legitimate reasons why you're exhausted. Perhaps, there's a lot of activity and a lot of responsibility, but you must take an inventory and get rid of what is not essential. You must make time for yourself. If you are very sluggish or restless or constantly tired, then this deeper discovery, this deeper curiosity will always remain clouded because you'll just remain in the day-to-day stuff. Next question is, hi Sunny, I asked you this question on the last webinar, but unfortunately you didn't answer it. I would love to know more about your path. When I compare your videos from a year ago, I see a shift in your teaching and your energy. Could you please explain what created that shift? So that's the first part of the question. I would say what has created that shift is silence. Learning to right, becoming more interested not in just the world and what was I was constantly chasing, because I noticed myself chasing so many things for what? For my happiness. So being more interested in why I was chasing this and this, being interested in the very subtle realm, the way that we did on this call today, rather than just being immersed in experience. And then the inquiry itself, the silence that it creates or it cultivates within you cleanses away all from your life that is just keeping you restless, attached, resisting, clinging. So just succumbing to this, surrendering to the silence, I would say has sort of created this shift, away from the sort of empowerment teachings and constantly trying to change and manipulate experience into just learning to acknowledge your own nature as the very happiness that the mind is chasing through things. Why create a whole path from it rather than just here and now? Recognizing the happiness and the peacefulness that is essential to you. And from that, living how you wish to live. From that, letting the activity unfold. So you say, I've been following different spiritual leaders and speakers for a while. There are some similarities and some differences in all of them. I don't want to mention the confusion that I get from all these different teachings sometimes. Which philosophy do you follow? What are you trying to teach us? How did you get to this point? I would love to know the process. The only two things I teach is one, acceptance, two, inquiry. One is you recognizing what is and allowing it to be what is just for this moment, relinquishing all conflict, all identification, all attachment, all clinging, all resisting. And only when you are in a place of observing, pure observing, that which is essential to you, only when you are no longer in conflict with what is, can you ever have the deeper curiosity, or can you ever create the grounds for a greater discovery? Otherwise, you'll continue to just filter everything through your likes, dislikes, desires, fears. So for an accept the teaching of acceptance helps you put a pause on this and just realign with what is essential to you, relinquishing all conflict, which then opens up the ground for inquiry. As what am I observing? As what am I aware? So these are the two aspects of the teaching. They're inherently simple. And this is the very thing that through my own practice I've come to understand is the only important thing in my experience. This takes you directly to what the teaching to what the overall spiritual teaching is pointing you to. What I often like to call real spirituality rather than, the constant different paths. Nothing wrong with them. There's always perhaps a time and space for them. But here and now, this teaching is only for the one who is genuinely curious in understanding one's nature, not for anything else. And this is not a means to some better future. Here, we expose even these sorts of mental movements, these tendencies. And so, the next question is, I find it really difficult to observe my thoughts when triggered by certain people who say and do things every time I meet them to cause hurt and pain for me. I get spiraled into dizzy spells of thinking about what they said, why they said it, and I get so annoyed and not standing up or confronting them, even though I know it's best to ignore this kind of behavior. I limit my contact with this person, but there are times when it's inevitable. So notice here, you're worried too much about the toy. Watch the child, not the toy. And here you may be like, but this, but this, but this. So, but you must keep it really, really simple. If you need to, disengage yourself from somebody who is causing you hurt intentionally and all that. Remove yourself from that. But if this is something that, is perhaps you're not able to remove yourself from that. So instead of getting spiraled into these dizzy spells of thinking, you must learn to observe the thinking arising and be willing to turn away from it. And for this, you must stay consistent with the practice. It's not just a short-term solution. But as you stay consistent with the practice and you keep it simple, then your capacity to turn away from the constant interpretation and judgment of what's going on will will increase. And you must trust, at least for now, that the spontaneous nature of what is arising, that is bringing up a lot of this unconsciousness from within you, perhaps even, is relevant. It will help. And through it, the proper action to take care of it will also arise. These are not so many things, so much that you need to worry about. And so, see, again, this is a sort of surrendering your own little mental realm to the greater intelligence. It is true acceptance, true flow. It is being in the flow of life rather than in every turn clouding your judgment with preference and resistance. And in this way, perhaps, initially there may be some friction, but you will see that this will cleanse even the circumstantial friction in your life. Although that's not your goal, right? Your goal is to truly become curious as to your nature, the nature of what is experienced. But you'll see as a natural side effect that it cleanses a lot of this dysfunction, friction, even others who act this way and situations in your life in this way start to come less and less as you have greater and greater clarity. So for the time being, let these types of people and situations serve their purpose, which is to make you more wise, to help you look at your own self, to help you not just be immersed in the world, but rather look at the reactions and responses that are coming from within you and then let go of identification with that as well. Adi asked, how do we know it is not the mind that observes the mind? I have a YouTube video coming about this week. So you'll get your answer in depth there. But here and now, no need to, for short, don't care about labeling that which is aware. Just here and now, the fact is something is aware, something knows. In it, thoughts are appearing, there's some emotions. Obviously, we're labeling them just for the sake of even talking about it, but just see whatever is arising is known. That which is aware, is that one knowable? Let that question dwell in that question. Don't care if it's the mind or awareness or body, whatever. Let go of the labels. Just understand something is aware. What is it? As what are you aware? Ryan asked, what about observing in social situations and conversations? In the beginning is definitely just constant immersion, right? This is where I ask you to see that as you're staying consistent with the daily practice, as you're really curious and genuinely, dedicated, devoted to the teaching itself, the capacity will come from within you where you'll be able to observe yourself in the most active of situations rather than just being immersed in activity. There will you won't because it's not just sitting for 20 minutes a day and shutting the world off and then you're aware. That may be what that will fuel your ability to be more aware throughout the day. Right now you believe that this person, this body is being aware. And as this through your daily meditation and the daily practice, the genuine curiosity, even these sorts of conversations, these will help you truly acknowledge that it is the other way around, that it is in the awareness, the body and the mind and the world and the body's world are seen. And as you start to recognize that the seeing is your true position from where all is perceived, now the body and its actions, the body and its world can all be observed rather than creating this inner and outer. The moment you identify yourself as the body, now everything that is subtle, your thoughts and emotions, is the inner, and everything else is the outer, right? The world is the outer. But once you start to recognize that even the mind is seen, now all is sort of outer, or all is within awareness, observable. And so, regardless of the contents of this moment, whether you're sitting on the couch doing nothing versus having a engaged argument even with a friend, your capacity to observe not just the experience but also the very subtle little thoughts and things coming from within, which is also just experience, they will also be observable, and you no longer will be controlled and pulled in 5 different directions all the time. Next question is, if everything is known through a thought from the mind, what place do emotions have in the knowing? Are they experienced in the body? How do I de identify from them? Because while doing the self inquiry, when thoughts cease, the sensations and perceptions still persist, identifying me with the body. Well, here you're being asked to question if the thoughts are the one knowing. You're being asked to acknowledge that the thoughts themselves are known, are seen to arise and subside, are seen to come and go, like that train that is coming. It is not at the platform, then it comes at the platform, and then it leaves. You are on the platform from where you're able to see the coming and going of this train. So, as what are you seeing the thought coming and going? All is just content, all perceivables. Look at it as content. It doesn't matter if it's the body, which is just sensations and an image. That's the body. The emotion, content, thoughts, content. No need to break them down and see what is connected to what. Just see. All is seeable, all is perceivable. And don't just assume that it is the mind knowing, you know? You don't need to assume that. And what is knowing? You don't need to like label it. Just be curious as to what knows. Be fresh for this looking. This looking, you're not really looking for a conceptual answer, even. The looking itself is what brings you to quietude, silence, the lack of objective focus. And that is what is ultimately important, because that is what sort of burns away the identification, the belief that you have in every little thing that arises as me and mine. Next question is, after practicing meditation over time and just overcoming negative thoughts and pointless thoughts, does presence feel satisfying? Because right now I'm able to be present, but I'm not being as joyful as I maybe I should in presence. Here and now, it is a joy to be, is it not? To be is such a joy. It is something that we cling to so much. So meditation, inquiry, right? And like means to silence. In silence, in the lack of objective focus, all content is sort of faded out of view, right? All that remains is the very beingness, knowingness. So don't try to here and now, here, then create something, create a sort of joy just because you've heard about it, or look for some sort of bliss or peaceful experience. Just be open to the very beingness itself, and see. But consider that your joy perhaps doesn't need to come from experience, things. Perhaps the very being aware is the joyfulness, the peacefulness. But your pursuits for happiness must cease for you to even perhaps open up to this, you know? So don't look for anything in meditation. Definitely don't chase an experience. Just follow the pointer and see where it takes you. Not as some sort of destination, but just being open to what is here and now. Next question is, if I separate my awareness from the happenings around me, viewing it as just an experience, will it end up changing the level of attachment I feel to my family and friends? Sort of a sense of detachment, less caring or concerned about them? You must have the courage to find out for yourself, because this is, you wish to go deeper into the teaching, and then the mind creates all of these sorts of worries and concerns, and here you stop, here you buy into them, and then sometimes you just, you're like, then you resist the teaching itself, and then the mind pulls you back into pure immersion. So see that if you're genuinely curious, then go all the way and see for yourself. You'll always be able to readjust. If that is the case and you don't like it, then readjust. Go back to the other way. But one thing that you may be surprised to see is that when you are no longer always perceiving from attachment, fear, worry, anxiousness, only then can you truly care for another. Only then can you be free of self seeking interest, constantly in manipulating your friends and family and others to try to do certain things, and always for some sort of benefit or purpose. Only then can you actually experience for the sake of experiencing. Only then is there true connectedness between or in relationship. You see? So that's an invitation to you. And then now you must have the courage to go for it, regardless of these mental concerns. You'll see many of these mental concerns you can just look away from. Alex asked, say something about Neville. Can I achieve success studying only Neville's teachings? Although I no longer teach that, I will say yes. What we are discussing here on the call today is not based in those teachings. But yes, absolutely. If that is what your focus is, then definitely practice. Just get to a few more questions and then we'll call it for today. When I try to observe my thoughts, they stop, as I can't do the two things at once, and this causes me distress. I keep needing to repeat the thoughts to get temporary relief, otherwise I feel anxious. How to deal with this? See in this, right now perhaps you're relying on mental affirmations or thoughts, positive thoughts, for a sense of relief, for a sense of peace. This may be relevant at a certain point in your journey, but you're going to outgrow this. You don't need to no longer be dependent on things for anything, for objects, on objects for anything. So see the anxiousness that arises with the emptiness of focus. Perhaps the anxiousness arises, observe that. See something is aware of even that. And it's a great discovery. You're seeing that the moment you look, the moment you inquire, thought ceases. Thought requires your attention to be outward turned. So don't let this cause you distress. Watch the distress arise. Don't take ownership of it. Don't need to do something about it. Just let it be. Don't give it that attention and significance that it demands, and you will free yourself from it. Due to practice, thought has diminished immensely. Will this stay as a pattern? Our goal is not to diminish thought. It is to recognize that it is not you. It is to recognize that thought itself is not the problem. It is to no longer be immersed in thinkingness itself. It is to no longer allow the thinkingness to pull you around in all sorts of ways, making you believe all sorts of things about yourself and the world. Once you have this space between you and the thinking is no longer a problem. And now you're actually available for a greater curiosity. So don't worry about what happens to thought. Just continue to stay in the practice, the curiosity of what is it that is aware of the thought, being a lot or less. Alondra asked, I have been in higher levels of consciousness. I also used to see many synchronicities, and then something happened to me that made me had a mind attack where I literally felt that all of my progress was gone. It was so scary. I thought I was going insane. I feel different and emotional numb since then, like if I am disconnected, like if my progress is gone. Is this possible, or is my mind tricking me so bad? You tell me, based on our conversation so far. All these are just interpretations of experience. My progress has gone. My this, my that. See these interpretations arise. You have the capacity to look, yet not so fully believe in. Through your own power of belief, you give life to these things. And then now they make you go in a whole different separate path. Whereas the teaching is very simple. It's asking you to observe even these thoughts. Don't be so interested in their content. You remain immersed in the content because you're so interested in the content. Be interested in the very observing itself. See that this thought is known. I may sound repetitive here, but you must understand this very simple little fact, You know what else is repetitive? Being immersed in thought and the chaos it creates and the dysfunction it creates in your life. You must again and again readjust this position. Rather than looking from that thought, have I lost my progress? Bring that into your seeing from where it is no longer you. And from here, you have some choice and you can just discard. And now your experience is once again, fresh without the concept of progress. Because progress also arises as a concept here and now, as a thought that's saying, this is where I am, this is where I'm coming from, this is where I must go. Be free of all this stuff. And you'll see that in this practice, there is no loss of progress. No experience can lead to a loss of progress. Every experience can only further help you understand if you allow it to. If you just stay in the clinging or resisting, the constant desire to manipulate your experience, then you will always miss the lesson. But as you learn to observe, not just the experience, but also your personal reactions to the experience, you will really, that is what we call wisdom. That is what we call transcendence of these little personal things. Does self inquiry help to resolve trauma and emotional wounds from the past? I always refer to it as the one true healing, you know? Any other healing that is done on a thought and emotional level may be of benefit in some way, but it keeps you. See how it just reinforces the identity of being a broken one, of being a wounded one. And any amount of healing for this one is never enough. Always a feeling of, I need more healing. Whereas inquiry allows you to look at the wounded one, the one that claims to be wounded, and all of his different faces, and see it and no longer believe in it, no longer identify in it, and see clearly from where you even see this. You see, in this way, dissolving identification with the wounded one is the only true healing. Otherwise, no matter how much healing, there will always be more to do. So the only true healing is the letting go of all healing by seeing it all as the personal drama, not negating it, not rejecting it, but seeing it all as not me or mine. And this is what the self-inquiry is the means to, the silence in which this understanding cultivates and develops. So guys, we're gonna end it here for now. Okay. I know there's some leftover questions, and I will try to make a future video about it, upcoming video about it. So thank you everybody for your questions and participation. Had a great time doing this today, and I hope that this call was really helpful to everybody. As just a reminder again, if this is a process that you need help with, if this is something that you feel yourself struggling with or lacking the consistency with, then consider the higher consciousness shift, in which we do these calls twice per week. And the sole purpose of which is to bring you to complete clarity of the teaching. As long as you are clear about the teaching, it will be simple for you to implement it. And as long as you stay consistent with it, you will continue to allow yourself to go deeper into this and see clearly. So take advantage of those resources. I'm going to continue doing these webinars as well, as I see it as helping you. I'm going to post this recording on YouTube maybe today or perhaps tomorrow. So take a look, and perhaps if you need to listen to your answer again, go ahead with that. But thank you so much for attending and being here with me today. Really, really appreciative of you all. I'll see you next time. Okay. So everybody have a great rest of your weekend. See you next time.